This is Warren Vanderhill interviewing Sherry Kloss for the Muncie Jewish Oral History Project 2. It is January 8th, 2003, and I'd like to begin, Sherry, by telling you how much I appreciate your willingness to do this and to participate in my study. The first question I've been asking all the participants really is a general one that doesn't have anything to do with Temple Bethel or the Muncie Jewish community, and that's simply to ask you why you came to Muncie and what other what other options you might have had when you decided, okay, it's going to be Muncie and not A, B, or C.
All right. I suddenly found myself in a situation of being a widow, and I was living in the desert of California, even though I had been raised in all of the major large cities, raised in Pittsburgh, studied in all of the big cities of the world. I knew that I didn't want to continue living in the desert of California, and so I went into a job search. I knew that it was time to come back to the university after being away for some 14 years. And the position that was advertised at Ball State was the most appealing to me because it involved a distinguished professorship and violinist in the American Piano Trio.
When you first came here, I know you haven't been here very long, so this may be a bit of an unfair question. What did you think of Muncie?
Well, I have been to Muncie before I accepted the job. Some years ago, I was brought here to perform a concert under the auspices of Mu Phi Epsilon professional music sorority, and at that time, I recall, I flew into Muncie.
Right, you could do that then from Chicago.
Yes.
Right.
I will tell you that I had trepidation about coming to Middletown, America, after having been raised in communities and lived in communities with large Jewish population. Even though I personally was raised in a non-Jewish neighborhood in Pittsburgh, I was one of 2 Jewish students in high school. I had no difficulty living among friends and families of non-Jewish belief, but I'm at a different point in my life now, and I had some questions, especially when I got into the website and I saw that there were just 2% Jews in Muncie.
In the short time that you've been here, have your views of Muncie changed at all?
I will say that I absolutely adore my position. I love what I'm doing here, and I have felt very gratified with the small amount I'm able to do in regard to the Jewish community.
Reflect a little bit on your life as a member of a Jewish community, although in your case, since you've traveled so much and lived so many different places, it's probably plural, that is to say Jewish communities, before you came to Muncie.
Well, to begin with, being raised by parents of European birth, I am a first-generation American, being raised in a community of non-Jews, and always being shown the respect and interest for my faith has been a very interesting journey. Because not only growing up in my immediate neighborhood, I then went on to Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, which is a Catholic university, and I recall that the first Christmas celebration, we had a big party, and I came into the hall that evening, and aside all of the Christian decorations, they had placed an immense Jewish star on the wall. So again, I was in a situation where there was respect and interest shown towards my faith. Everywhere that I lived after that, which included New York, Boston, Europe, Oregon, California, and most frequently in the situations where I traveled, I always would go to visit the places of worship that would be of interest to me, not only historically, but culturally. I just returned from St. Petersburg. In July, I was invited to give master classes at the St. Petersburg Conservatory, and it was inevitable that I would have to go to the St. Petersburg Synagogue. So that when I came to Muncie, I recall that the day of my interview, I asked, is there a temple? And one of my colleague said, yes, there is, with great surprise. And I said, could I see it? And I was driven down there, and I was absolutely speechless. I was absolutely captivated and very thrilled.
How would you describe your life since you've been in Muncie as a member, specifically now, of the Jewish community?
I would say that I do feel isolated. I will say also that had I been in a larger community, I probably would not have taken on the role as faculty advisor of the Hillel, because I would have known someone else could have done it. And I am very, very busy in my life, not only at the university, but professionally. However, I found some mail in my box the first year that I was here, and it was addressed to Hillel. And I said to myself, Hillel? You mean there is a Hillel here? I was so surprised. So, of course, I pursued that, and indeed I found out that there had been Hillel, but it had become inactive because there was no one to sponsor it. And, of course, I knew that I needed to do that for the students and for myself as well. And it has been very gratifying. We have a small amount of students who come forward. I would suspect that there are many more Jewish students on campus. But times have changed. These young people are a product of intermarriage, and not only intermarriage, but non-religious affiliation in general. And I think we also have to keep in mind we are in the Bible Belt.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of these people are afraid to announce themselves. My goodness, when you finish reading Martin Goldsmith's book, look at Martin Goldsmith. Didn't even know that he was a Jew until the last 10 years of his life.
How important is being a part of the Temple Bethel community in your life?
It's very important for me to be affiliated so that I can share my upbringing and to support the ongoing life of the community. I don't have that much time to participate on a regular basis, but I do make my presence in town known.
Let me shift a little bit. In the first study that my colleague Roy Hoover and I did of the Muncie Jewish community, we asked each of the participants to comment on relationships in the Muncie community between Jewish members and non-Jewish members. And I'm asking each participant in this study if they think that question these days still has an awful lot of validity, because in the Marty Schwartz generation, it had a tremendous amount to do with their lives because of restrictions that were placed on them in terms of where they could buy homes, restrictions that were placed on them in regard to clubs like the Rotary and others that they couldn't join, the Delaware Country Club. Now, 23 years later, I posed the question to see if that really is much of an issue.
I will say that when I was informed that the area that I presently live in was an area that Jews were not allowed to live in, I felt a pang. I was not happy about it, but it's not the first time that I've been made aware of such things. In my own life, I have experienced so little discrimination. I have come to learn, and I have been taught by a very open-minded mother that a person is a person. Now, presently here, I would say that I don't really feel any restrictions, but I will say that people are aware that I am Jewish. There is no question. I don't wear it on my sleeve, but people know that I'm Jewish. My students are learning because at the time of the high holidays, if it comes out on a school day, I'm not here. And if they are not aware of what this means, I will simply explain that it is the Jewish high holiday. Now, if they don't know what Jewish is, and if they didn't know that I am Jewish, now they have learned. And perhaps that causes them to want to investigate a little bit more about what I am all about and what my religion is all about. I will also tell you that when the holidays come around, I want to give more visibility to what Judaism is all about, and I have contacted the newspaper and asked them to please do a little article that would involve our Hillel people so that they can know about Judaism on campus, and I've had many responses from students on campus who wanted to come to the temple to experience Judaism, who wanted to interview some of the students, some of the Hillel students, for some of their classwork. And I think that is a wonderful, wonderful plus. My students come in and bring me Hanukkah cards now.
Yeah. I noticed that when I came in.
Now, I doubt that would happen in New York.
Probably not. I don't think they live there.
So that's very lovely.
Yeah.
We also were able to add a little bit of pizzazz to the university, because we had two speakers speaking on topics of Judaism, and so I garnered our Hillel people to present a program in between the two speakers' works, and it gave them such a great sense of pride. I noticed they were wearing their Ball State Hillel t-shirts, and I think that is a step forward.
So you've really done a lot with that group in the short time you've been here, because it was kind of moribund before Sherry Kloss came to become a distinguished professor. At least that's my recollection of it. There have been times when there's been a bit of an ebb and flow as far as activity with the Hillel group on campus.
Well, thank you.
A more specific question. In your life, here and elsewhere, and it's mostly elsewhere, have you experienced overt or covert anti-Semitism?
Not directly.
Okay.
I have been fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Germany. I was just sharing this story with someone recently. I lived in northwest Germany when I was studying with the great violinist Tibor Varga. And one evening, Mr. Varga's secretary invited me to his home for dinner. And she was an older woman, and suddenly, out of the clear blue sky, she started reenacting Kristallnacht to me. She was more or less trying to apologize to me. Of course, it was very fun, the conversation. It was one word in German and one word in English, but her white complexion turned red, bright red, and she told me that she heard sirens that night, and she didn't know what was happening, but the next morning that she learned that the temple had been burned, and this was her way of apologizing to me. But even in that community, even though there was no more temple, and I was surrounded by Germans, I did not directly, ever.
Back to the local scene. How do you see the future of Temple Bethel?
I think the future lies in the young people. I'm a little bit frightened because as the older generations die out, their children do want to move away, and rightly so. Not anything against Muncie, but there is a world out there, and if someone is going to expand in their life and in their world, they have to be exposed. So I fear for the future. I must also tell you this, that since my name is listed in the books as the Hillel sponsor, I receive countless emails from parents who are concerned about sending their children to Ball State because of the Jewish question. I haven't erased them all, but I have many because I wanted to use them in some way at some time in the future, but I've had mail from as far away as Reno, Nevada, Michigan, Ohio, California, and simply the question is, my child has been raised with regular Torah study. My child has a conservative way of Jewish life. I am concerned about my child coming into a community where there are so few Jewish students. What is your opinion? And that is a very direct and hard question to answer, but I found that I had to be very honest, and I said we have a small but wonderful Jewish community here. The students are like family, and the issue you must consider above all is the quality of the education, and I believe that education is here. And that mother wrote back and immediately said, "Thank you very much for your honesty, and I think you are right." You know, we have Jewish students as far away as Alaska here.
Yeah, I've been aware of that in the years that I've been here. but I think, again, to pay you a high compliment, it takes someone like you, even with your very, very busy schedule on and off campus, to make a decision that you're going to be the focal point for activities like Hilo.
Well, thank you. I will tell you that I have had a lot of joy from this, even though I've been very busy. I just arrived back from Korea. One day later, we had a Hanukkah party at my home last year. But I want to tell you about it because it was so special. We didn't have very many. We had maybe 10 of the Jewish students, but a few of them brought their roommates. And I asked them all to bring their menorahs so we could light the candles together. As it happened, 10 minutes before they arrived, and I was busy in the kitchen making potato latkes, the phone rings, and it's my Chabad rabbi calling me from the desert. And I never could have survived my life at that point when I was living in California without them, because they were right there for me. I'm not a member of Chabad, but they're very good people. They're all over the world, and they're keeping Judaism alive. He called me, a young man, and I said, Rabbi, I can't believe you're calling me now. I hadn't talked to him for 4 months. Would it be possible for you to call back in 35 minutes? Because, and then I explained to him that I was having this gathering, and I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful? I could put him on the speaker phone, and he could offer some words to us for Hanukkah. And he said, oh, I would be delighted. Can you call me at the Children's Museum? That's where I will be with a group of children. So, after everyone arrived, I called the rabbi, and he wanted to speak to each one. He asked each one where they were from, what their major was, what their major interest was, and then he offered us such beautiful words for the holiday. And when we said goodbye, I can tell you that each person in that room, not only the Jewish students, but the other students, were definitely moved. Then we proceeded. We had a dinner, we had our latkes, we lit the candles, we said the prayers, even had a little gift exchange. And one of the students came over to me and said, Miss Kloss, I can't tell you what it felt like to walk into this house and smell the potato latkes cooking. And he said it almost with tears in his eyes, and I knew exactly what he meant. And so, that's the reason.
How important do you think that the building addition is to the future of Temple Bethel?
Building addition? You mean
the new part?
The new part? Oh, it's imperative, because where can we congregate? I mean, one doesn't want to congregate in that gorgeous sanctuary. The sanctuary is for reflection and prayer. Absolutely, because I would imagine it has added enormous possibilities. We've even had concerts.
Yeah. I've had a number of people comment on the temple with the building addition becoming much more of an arts center, and you're certainly involved in that. But I've had a couple of people that I've interviewed mention the cultural dimension.
Very important. And it also attracts people of other faiths.
That's definitely true.
Where they may be a little bit intimidated to walk into the sanctuary just because of their lack of experience and their distance from what it all means, they'll be more willing to walk into the social hall.
This is a good time of the year for making wish lists. If there were to be a Sherry Kloss wish list for the future of the temple, what kinds of things might be put on that list?
I would say perhaps that more of the Jewish professors on campus and Jewish students would feel more of a desire to step forth and be a part of the temple. It doesn't mean that they have to be active, but at least support what Judaism is all about, so that we can ensure that Judaism will survive in Muncie.
Are you concerned at all about the issue that seems to be very significant in the congregation, certainly was even 23 years ago, about the student rabbis and full-time rabbis having a full-time rabbi?
It's something I've thought about. I think until the time comes that we have a regular rabbi full-time, there may be this feeling of isolation.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, when my rabbi
Yeah,
called from California,
that's why
my rabbi, I can turn to my rabbi, and it's not that we can't turn to the rabbi who is here. It's wonderful, and I'm grateful we have it. I'm very grateful. But to know that there is a presence here is very important.
Okay.
I don't know if it's realistic based on the numbers, but I would think that if there were a young rabbi who wants to begin his or her career, this would be a wonderful mission. I mean, when you think of missionaries, they go somewhere and they build, or conductors, young conductors,
right.
They go somewhere and they build.
Right.
Today, it seems that conductors now have 6 orchestras, and they're here for 2 weeks, and then they're somewhere else for 2 weeks, and the musicians are not happy.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you can't build the bond.
Right. Well, I thought of that in the context of you talking about the rabbi that you know so well out on the West Coast, because when I did these interviews initially 23 years ago, that was a very important issue. And after I did a couple of them, this is about, I guess, the 8th or 9th or 10th one that I've done in this set, once again people brought up the issue of a full-time rabbi. And I know there are people in the congregation now that are trying to think of a way to put together what I can only call a package that might involve Ball State in some way. It might involve a grant from the Lilly Foundation.
I think that's the answer. I think that the university is the core of everything that exists in this community. Every single thing. I mean, including the fact, and this will get a little bit more personal. I bought a new car this year. I bought the Honda Hybrid. I was going to buy it in Indianapolis, but then I suddenly thought, why should I buy it there? I live here. So I bought it here. And then I received a call from the person who sold me the car there and said, you realize that 2 or more cars like you bought were bought by the university.
Yeah, that's right. I did have something to do with that. Right. Yeah. I think that's very important. I agree with you.
And then they said to me, we will keep your scholarship fund in mind.
That's good. That's a plus.
Well, why did all this happen? Because I went to them. I am a person from the university who has high visibility. I drive this car. Yeah. And so it's all aligned. I think that the university and the hospital are the core of everything that exists here.
Well, you moved to my next and really last question, and that is, as I said when we began the interview, my working hypothesis for this study is something stated in kind of a blunt way. If it were not for Ball State faculty coming here, if it were not for doctors coming to Ball Memorial Hospital, that there might not be a Temple Bethel.
I agree.
You do?
I absolutely agree. Because the industries that were here before are no more. And so the few people who are still remaining here, very likely, are people who have no direction. And because of personal situations have found themselves isolated and don't have the wherewithal to do anything about it.
The other part of it that has always intrigued me is that the people who come here to work at the hospital and to be part of the Ball State community, because they're both, of course, faculty and staff, that they're certainly not, in most cases, Midwesterners. And they bring to the temple a lot of diversity. I mean, when I look at that congregation and when I think of where those people have come from to be in Muncie, for whatever reason, largely, in many cases, hospital and Ball State, it brings a richness to the fabric of the congregation.
Absolutely, I agree with you. If you went into a temple in New York, you would not have that diversity at all. And I have seen that throughout the world.
Are there any questions, any comments, any other perspectives that you want to add?
I will just say that I was extremely delighted to find what I did find in Muncie when it came to Judaism. Even though my background and even my leanings are more conservative, orthodox, I keep kosher in Muncie. Do you know how outrageous that is?
I know how hard it is.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
You cannot get kosher meat. In Indianapolis, you can't even get it. It's frozen there. But I still maintain that. Now all of my colleagues and anyone who comes to my house is aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that conversation with Sam Dobrow 23 years ago about how difficult it was to do that, and I'm certainly aware that it hasn't become any easier for people to keep kosher in that almost 25-year interim between those conversations.
But I have to say that it was fun last year when the Malmans were going into Cincinnati, and I said, "You're going to Cincinnati? How about a kosher meat order?" "Oh yes,
Yeah.
that's where we're going to go, get the kosher meat." And in a way, it's sort of like being a pioneer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with that kind of attitude, we are pioneers.
I was smiling only because when I came here, having grown up around the corner in the borough of Queens from the Jewish delicatessen, and knowing I was not going to find one in Muncie, the discovery of Shapiro's in Indianapolis was sort of like, I can't believe that there is a place like Shapiro's in Indianapolis. So that was like a homecoming for me, and that was 30-some years ago. So I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Anything else you want to add?
I can't think right now.
Okay. Well, we'll be in touch, and if other things occur to you, send me an email or call me, or we'll see each other on campus or something like that.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much.